music, and silence. Let us listen to Swamiji, this very interesting story on this International Peace Day.
Thank you, Arvind. And yes, today on the occasion of International Peace Day, it takes me back to 16 years. And 2006, 21st September is a very memorable day for me because there was a very interesting incident that happened, a very thrilling incident, an adventurous incident, I must say, and something which we all have to learn from. Yeah. So let's do a throwback Wednesday today and go back to September 21st, 2006, when Gurudev came to Sri Lanka to mediate between the Sri Lankan government and the Tamil Tigers who were popularly known as the LTTE. And they were considered as one of the most feared organizations in the 90s and the early 80s. They were considered as one of the most feared organizations. And the civil war between these two parties happened for almost over 20 years. It happened for almost 26 years. And in 2006, Gurudev, Sri Ravi Shankar ji, was invited by both the Sri Lankan government and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, the LTTE, to mediate and bring some degree of peace and stability in that beautiful island nation. And I happened to be there during that time. I spent about 9 years in Sri Lanka. And September 21st, 2006. I would like to spotlight on that day now. And Gurudev arrived at the Colombo airport, and after freshening up, he took the car to the local, airport there known as the Ratmalana airport, from where they flew to a place called Vavuniya. And Vavuniya is in central Sri Lanka, and there they have their Sri Lankan Air Force High Command is there in that place at Vavuniya. And from there on, they had to go to a place called Omantai. Now, Omantai was the last point in the Sri Lankan held territory. Yeah, the territory held by the Sri Lankan government, which is in the north of Sri Lanka. So from Omantai, they had to cross over a place known as the no man's land. So there was a stretch of land, a piece of land known as the no man's land. And on the other side was the LTT held territory. So Gurudev, along with Swami Sadyojata ji, with Harish ji and Anandam, three of them accompanied Gurudev to go and meet the LTT chief known as Prabhakaran. So that was the task on hand. And Gurudev and the entourage were dropped by the Sri Lankan military, vehicle, till that point where the no man's land starts. Yeah. So talking a little bit about the no man's land, this particular piece of land was under the responsibility of the United Nations and the Sri Lanka Monitoring Mission. Yeah. So in this piece of land, anything that happened was neither the responsibility of the LTT or the Sri Lankan government. So it was, you can say, a neutral piece of land. Yeah. So Gurudev reached that particular point, the entrance of the no man's land, and there was a little cabin there where a Norwegian was managing that cabin, and he came out and he said, I'm yet to get an approval from the LTT side for you to cross over to the LTT side. So this meeting between Gurudev and Prabhakaran, the LTT chief, was scheduled in a place called Kilinochi, which was the de facto capital. It was a capital declared by the LTT themselves, and the meeting was supposed to happen over there. So they were waiting for the approval from the LTT, but there was already an approval sought from the LTT for this meeting. So Gurudev got down from the car and he was walking around a little bit over there because the UN person was still awaiting a green signal from the LTT side. So it was a very old-fashioned kind of approval that was happening. So they would wave a flag from the other side and then they would allow people to cross onto the other side. Now, a little background there is in April 2006, the chances of the fourth and final phase of the war to start again was very high. Yeah, there were all signs of this phase, the last phase of the war, to start again. There were many violent incidents, there were bomb blasts, there were assassination attempts. So all these incidents, one after the other, like LTT launches an attack and then the Sri Lankan government launches a counter attack. So this continued and there was enough talk on the war resuming again. Yeah. So between 2002 and 2007, there was a ceasefire agreement. It was on paper, but you know, there were acts of violence and low intensity war, if I could put it that way, were happening. And at that point in time, in August of 2006, the Sri Lankan government had bombed an orphanage run by the LTT. And Prabhakaran, the chief of the LTT, he just missed that bombing by a whisker. Now, this made the LTT and the Sri Lankan Tamils really upset, saying that, you know, that the Sri Lankan government is provoking and planning to start the war again. So the blame game had already started. And Gurudev reached there on September 21st. And here he was making this bold initiative to go and talk to the chief of the LTT. Yeah. So the stage was all set and Gurudev was ready to cross this no man's land when the UN officer there told him that just yesterday a cow was passing by and it stepped on a landmine and the cow died in the landmine blast. Just imagine yourself in that situation when you are told that a cow just died in a landmine blast just a few meters away. Yeah. So there was Swami Sadyojata ji, Harish ji and Anandam who were there with Gurudev, and you can imagine what would have been happening, yeah, in their mind. And Gurudev, in spite of that, he decided to undertake that walk, go ahead on that path and go and meet Prabhakaran. Now that was his intention, because I believe that great leaders use all their courage, grit and determination to go ahead in spite of obstacles. But here one of the obstacles was the landmines planted by the LTT. Now the landmines had been planted by the LTT because They were anticipating that the war will start again. So the UN officer told them that the landmines they have planted landmines everywhere, and the LTT is recruiting more children to fight the war. And he said, no one is taking responsibility here, and on this no man's land, it's no one's responsibility except mine. Yeah. So the UN officer cracked up a little joke over there in that very serious situation. And Gurudev said that he will undertake that journey to cross the no man's land and go on to the other side. Now, for me, this is an example of real leadership. Real leadership is about going ahead with all the guts, the gumption, the courage and determination, and saying that I will go through it in spite of obstacles. That for me is a fundamental point in real leadership. Yeah. But then you would say, Swamiji, but Gurudev knew there were landmines. So how did he risk his life and the life of three other people along with him and still walk that path? Yeah. Now that is where I read into the situation where Gurudev used his mystical ability, used his skill to decipher where the landmines are. That is my reading from this situation. Spiritual leaders, as you all know, carry that mystical ability, yeah, to decipher dangers that one is presented with. And here Gurudev used that skill, used that talent, and used that perfection to actually tread that landmine path. So I would like to read from the book, a beautiful paragraph. Allow me to read. I want you to listen with patience today. Yeah, today is International Peace Day. So use that patience, yeah, and listen to the way the thing that happened on September 21st, 2006, 16 years ago. So let me read a few paragraphs from the book, Tiger's Paws, where I have spoken about Gurudev's peace efforts in Sri Lanka. Yeah. So here it goes. The 700 meter distance took a little longer than it should have as they walked gingerly. Every step and breath they took left them alternating between relief and caution. It was like walking a tightrope. One by one, they walked behind Gurudev, setting their feet on the footprints he left in the soil. Occasionally, they would see someone who looked like a teenager peeping through a small opening in the massive iron gates of the LTT checkpoint. So there was an LTT checkpoint on the other side. As beads of sweat flowed down their brows, Harish and Anandam carried the lunch basket, a box of fruits, and token gifts from India. There was an eerie silence and no sign of life except for a few crows crowing. Suddenly, there was a loud boom. The three of them froze in fear, but Gurudev continued walking. There was gunfire somewhere in the distance. Gurudev turned and glanced at them. Placing their deep trust in him, they began to walk behind him once again. As they reached the massive iron gates, Harish exclaimed, "This felt like walking through eternity." A lanky boy in his teens, who was struggling to hold a large gun in his hands, opened the heavy gates with a lot of effort. So this is the story when they actually crossed the landmine path. I'm sure if it was you or me walking alone on that path, would have had an absolutely spine-chilling moment. But here, with the guidance of Gurudev and with Gurudev's uh, ability to see ahead, he took the other three people across the landmine path. Yeah. So for me, I'm recalling and remembering the story today so that it can be an inspiring remembrance for all of us how not to give up in times of difficulty, how not to give up when people put obstacles in front of you. And remember, both the LTT and the Sri Lankan government invited Gurudev to broker, to mediate peace between the two parties. And here, Gurudev was faced with obstacles. Yeah. So many times in our daily life, we face the landmine situation. Yeah. It could be someone at your workplace. It could be someone at home who's put some landmines. It could be a relative, perhaps. It could be anyone. But then one of my learnings from this is that great leaders do not give up, come what may. This is the sign of someone who is established in peace and someone who's established in skill and wisdom. This is the beauty of Gurudev. I love, I've used a term to describe Gurudev as a relaxed enigma. I've written about this in the book. Yeah, so I would like to invite you to read this book, The Tiger's Paws. Yeah, and there are many other stories that I've written here. The conspiracies that were there against Gurudev, the conspiracies that were there against the art of living, against our volunteers and teachers. And in spite of all the obstacles, in spite of all the odds, we managed to change a lot of lives in Sri Lanka. And Gurudev's attempt was to try and save the soul of a very beautiful nation, Sri Lanka. So I once again invite you all to read this book, imbibe the stories. There are a lot of lessons to learn. You may ask me, Swamiji, why should I read this book? I would say, learn from history, learn from experience, and nothing like learning from Gurudev's experience. So I have brought about the stories of Gurudev here in this book, The Tiger's Paws, and that will embellish and enrich our lives. Every time we read it, even these days, I read this book again because there's a new dimension that opens up even for me. Though I was there for 9 years in Sri Lanka, even for me, it opens up a new dimension of learning. Yeah, this book has also been released in Hindi. ये पुस्तक हिंदी में भी विमोचन किया गया है. इस पुस्तक का टाइटल है Toota Tiger. I'm getting a lot of requests now asking me to speak in Hindi also. So Arvindji, please give me the liberty to share this story with people in Hindi also. Yeah.
Yes, Swami, I have read that book myself, The Tiger's Paws, and I think it is a modern day thriller. It is just too spine chilling. The twists, the turns, the unexpected stuff. It is so amazing. I think people who would like to purchase it, you should go to the Art of Living store and get it today. It will be home delivered to you. The Tiger's Paws is, I mean, you cannot describe the book in how much ever sessions. It is an experience by itself to go through that book. स्वामी जी, आई थिंक बहुत सारे लोग आपसे हिंदी में भी जानना चाहेंगे कि उसकी कहानी क्या है. आप कृपया हिंदी में भी इसका विश्लेषण करें.
Yeah, so I would like to share with the Hindi audiences also. We've received several requests asking for sharing of this story in Hindi also. तो मैं अभी हिंदी में भी संक्षिप्त में इस घटना का डिस्क्रिप्शन जो है मैं आपको बोलना चाहूँगा। ये घटना हुई 2006 में श्रीलंका में 21 सितंबर को, जब गुरुदेव आए थे वहाँ। श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट और लिबरेशन टाइगर्स ऑफ तमिल ईलम LTT करके एक संस्था थी, कहीं लोगों को पता होगा। वो लोग ये गृह युद्ध लड़ रहे थे, उनको चाहिए थी, उनके बहुत सारी समस्याएं थे, श्रीलंकन तमिल लोगों की बहुत सारी समस्याएं थी उन दिनों में, आज भी वो चल रहा है, क्योंकि वो लोग काफी पीड़ा में रहे, क्योंकि श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट जो थी उनकी हक जो है काफी क्षेत्रों में छीना गया था, श्रीलंकन तमिल लोगों का हक। तो श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट और LTT के मुख्य लीडर जो थे प्रभाकरन करके, दोनों ने गुरुदेव को इनवाइट किया कि गुरुदेव आप श्रीलंका आइए और कुछ समझौता करिए हमारे बीच में, क्योंकि ये युद्ध जो, ये गृह युद्ध जो था 26 साल चल रहा था। तो तब गुरुदेव गए वहां पे तो ऑलमोस्ट 24 साल तो बीत चुके थे। तो गुरुदेव आए वहां श्रीलंका में, मैं वहां 9 साल रहा और मुझे ये मौका मिला देखने के लिए गुरुदेव कैसे समझौता बनाते हैं ऐसे स्थिति में। तो गुरुदेव आए थे वहां पे, एक जगह है ओमंतई करके एक जगह है। वो जगह जो है एक लास्ट एक गांव है, उसके बाद एक पाथ आती है, क्या बोलते हैं, एक स्ट्रेच ऑफ लैंड रहता है वहां पे, जिसको बोला जाता है नो मैन्स लैंड, यानी कि वो पार करके ही आपको LTT के टेरिटरी में जाना होता है। और जो भी घटनाएं उस नोमैन्स लैंड में होता है, उसमें तो किसी की जिम्मेदारी नहीं है, न LTT की न श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट की, क्योंकि वो लैंड जो है उसमें, वो जमीन जो है उधर बस एक यूनाइटेड नेशंस का एक छोटा सा एक कैबिन था वहां पे, और वो संभालता था वो पूरा स्ट्रेच ऑफ लैंड। तो गुरुदेव और 3 लोग, स्वामी सद्योजाता जी, हरीश जी और आनंदम, गुरुदेव के साथ गए वहां पे। और फिर एक वो ओमंताई गांव जो है उधर तक ही वहां गाड़ी जाती थी, और उधर से श्रीलंकन मिलिट्री ने गुरुदेव को बोला, गुरुदेव आपको यहाँ से पैदल जाना होगा, यहाँ से आपकी जिम्मेदारी है, आपको यहाँ से अभी आपका इंतजाम कर लीजिए करके। तो गुरुदेव कार से उतरे और वहाँ वो UN का जो आदमी था, ऑफिशियल था, उनसे बात की, और उन्होंने बोला कि भाई हमारे LTT से कुछ अप्रूवल नहीं आई है, लेकिन हमें ऑफिशियली LTT से अप्रूवल आया था ये मीटिंग के लिए। गुरुदेव और ये LTT चीफ प्रभाकरन जो है, उनको दोनों के बीच में मीटिंग के लिए ऑलरेडी अप्रूवल थी। तो स्वामी जी जो उनके साथ, गुरुदेव के साथ थे, तो हैरान हो गए, और वो ऑफिशियल को बोले कि भाई हमारे पास ऑलरेडी परमिशन है, पर ये UN ऑफिशियल बोले कि भाई मुझे कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं है, उधर से कुछ सिग्नल नहीं आया। तो वहां उस टाइम पे क्या होता था, वो LTT के साइड से वो लोग एक झंडा दिखाते थे कि भाई ठीक है ये लोग आ सकते हैं करके। तो फिर ऐसे गुरुदेव बातचीत कर रहे थे ये UN ऑफिशियल के साथ, तो अचानक ये UN ऑफिशियल ने बोल डाला कि कल ही एक गाय यहाँ से गुजर रही थी, तो वो लैंडमाइन के ऊपर वो गाय गई और वो एक्सप्लोड होके वो गाय मर गई। लैंडमाइन तो आपको पता ही है, बोलते हैं बारूद बारूद सारंग। तो उसमें वो घटना सुनी सब लोगों ने, तो फिर स्वामी जी, हरीश जी और आनंदम एक दूसरे को देखने लगे। तो फिर अभी क्या करना है? तो गुरुदेव ने क्या किया, उसके बावजूद भी गुरुदेव बोले कि नहीं, हम ये पार करके जाएंगे। आप सोचेंगे भाई कैसे गुरुदेव ने ऐसे एक डिसीजन ली कि वहां पे लैंडमाइंस लगाई हुई है, तो कैसे वो पार करके जाएंगे? भाई यही है एक गुरु का शक्ति। गुरु का शक्ति इसी में है। तो गुरु को दिख जाता है, हाँ भाई आगे खतरा है, तो कैसे निपटना है, ये कैसे जाएंगे। तो गुरुदेव ने बाकी तीनों को बोला। तो फिर वहां एलटीटी साइड से अप्रूवल आ गई, 1 घंटे के बाद अप्रूवल आ गई, और गुरुदेव और बाकी 3 लोग गुरुदेव के साथ, ये हम बोल सकते हैं लैंडमाइन पदयात्रा। हाँ? तो ये लैंडमाइन पदयात्रा शुरू हो गई। ये कुछ 700 मीटर का जमीन था, वो पार करके जाके एलटीटी साइड जाना था गुरुदेव और बाकी 3 लोगों को। तो जाते जाते तो गुरुदेव पीछे मुड़ के बोले लोगों को, बस मेरा फुटस्टेप्स फॉलो करो, बस मुझे बस फॉलो करो, बस इतना ही, बस मेरे पीछे तुम 3 लोग बस ऐसे फॉलो करते आओ। तो गुरुदेव चले उस जमीन पे, धीरे 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 से चले, और अचानक बीच में एक एक्सप्लोजन हुआ। तो सब लोग रुक गए, फिर भी गुरुदेव आगे चले। फिर गुरुदेव को लगा अरे भाई 3 लोग रुक गए, और पीछे देख के इशारा किया, चलो भाई आ जाओ मेरे पीछे, जस्ट फॉलो मी। तो फिर बाकी 3 लोग गुरुदेव के पीछे चलते 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 उस पार गए जहां एलटीटी का टेरिटरी था। तो ये घटना हम आज 21 सितंबर को वापस याद कर रहे हैं, ताकि हम इससे सीखें। आप पूछेंगे स्वामी जी हमें इससे क्या सीखना है? एक बात ये मैं बताना चाहता हूं कि जो लीडर्स जो है, जो भी घटनाएं हो, जो भी रुकावट आती है, वो पार करके जाने का वो जो एक संकल्प रखते हैं, हमें वो ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए। देखिए हमारे लाइफ में भी होता है कि नहीं, छोटी छोटी लैंडमाइंस हर की जिंदगी में होता है कि नहीं? कभी कभी ऑफिस में लैंडमाइन होता है कि नहीं? ऑफिस में नहीं तो कोई रिश्तेदार लैंडमाइन रखता है, कुछ घटना पैदा कर देते हैं आपके लिए, है कि नहीं? हा? तो पहली सीख क्या है? सच्ची लीडरशिप जो है वो एक क्या है भाई, जो भी रुकावट आती है, अगर आपने एक एक लक्ष्य, एक गोल को आपने स्वीकार कर लिया, आपने ठान लिया कि भाई ये मेरा गोल है, कोई मुझे रोक नहीं सकता है, ये एक हम सीख सकते हैं इस घटना से। और आप सीख सकते हैं, हमने आपको इस घटना के बारे में बता ही दिया है। और मैंने हिंदी पुस्तक में काफी घटनाओं के बारे में भी मैं लिखा है, कैसे गुरुदेव के खिलाफ षड्यंत्र रची, कैसे हमारी आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग संस्था और हमारे वॉलंटियर टीचर्स के खिलाफ कैसे षड्यंत्र रची वहां श्रीलंका में। मैंने ये सब इस पुस्तक में लिखा है, जिसका नाम है टूटा टाइगर। तो मैं आप सबको इनवाइट करता हूं, जरूर पढ़िए ये पुस्तक, और सीखने को बहुत है। देखो हमें इतिहास से सीखना है। अगर आज मैं यहाँ बैठ के आपके सामने ये घटना के बारे में बात कर रहा हूं, ये क्योंकि कि हमें इतिहास से सीखना है। बहुत कुछ मिलता है इतिहास से सीखने के लिए। तो देखिए 16 साल हो गए आज, एग्जैक्टली यही दिन है 21 सितंबर, इंटरनेशनल पीस डे, जब ये घटना हुई। सो आई होप ये घटना जो है इंस्पायर करती है हम सबको, एक उत्साह और उल्लास देती है कि भाई आगे बढ़ो जिंदगी में। घटनाएं आती जाती है, लोग रुकावट डालेंगे, हाँ? लोग पत्थर फेंकेंगे, उसके बावजूद भी क्या है, आज का सीख क्या है, हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड।
स्वामी जी, ये किताब टूटा टाइगर भी आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग स्टोर में अभी उपलब्ध है। तो मैं तो आग्रह करूंगा जो लोग ये सुन रहे हैं कि जल्द से जल्द अपनी कॉपियां ऑर्डर कर दें, बिकॉज ये डिले करने वाली चीज नहीं है, इसको जल्दी से पढ़ना चाहिए। जैसा स्वामी जी समझा रहे हैं कि इसमें इतना कुछ सीख है। पहले तो एक कहानी बड़ी रोमांचक है, और ऊपर से उस कहानी पढ़ते पढ़ते उसमें इतनी जीवन की सीख है। हमको लगता है इसको सबको ले लेना चाहिए। जल्दी से आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग स्टोर पर जाएं और इसको ऑर्डर करें अपनी कॉपी को, और लोगों को भी बताएं, अपने मित्रों को भी बताएं कि ऐसी किताब तो बहुत, लगता है मेरे बहुत सालों के बाद ऐसी किताब उपलब्ध हुई है हमारे लिए। धन्यवाद स्वामी जी for that wonderful session today, and on behalf of everybody who's been listening, and thank you very much. We hope to have more sessions on this. Certainly I think this book reading will really help people to understand what's in detail. Namaste.
Everyone, and enjoy both the books. हिंदी में भी है, अंग्रेजी में भी है। Enjoy the book and learn from it. Namaste.